Book of Demons is a game from Return to Games, a group that is working to create more modern and accessible versions of older games. Book of Demons is, in some ways, an adaptation of the original Diablo. Its story is much more lighthearted, but follows some of the same arcs and tries to have a similar atmosphere. The art style of the game is pretty wonderful. Everything looks like it's made from paper mache, and it gives it a really unique and interesting look. The game itself is on rails, and you have a predetermined path through each dungeon that your character will follow. Your character attacks enemies automatically, but whenever you click, it makes the attacking a lot faster. The early portion of the game is quite challenging. It has a nice balance, but as the game progresses, it never really gets harder, it just gets longer. Your exploration through the dungeons takes quite a long time because your character moves slowly, and the enemies just take longer and longer to kill rather than increasing in difficulty. And this tends to make the late portion of the game feel more like a chore rather than fun. But in these dungeons, there are small mini-bosses that have varying mechanics and a few spatterings of minions. The lack of enemy variety is disappointing. Through each of the acts, there are three. You will see the same monster repeated over and over and over, and only changing in minor ways. Once you reach the lower depths of Act 1, monsters start having frost armor, which prevents you from dealing more than one damage at a time. To me, this is the biggest flaw in the game, as there's not really any intuitive ways to get around the frost armor. There are items that let you deal with it, but it takes up an item slot, and also it's dependent on RNG as to whether or not you get the item. So this makes killing enemies take forever, and the enemies never really deal more damage. It just takes longer and longer and longer. The gameplay itself is fairly fun. I think the collecting of the item cards is fun. The upgrade system is better designed than a lot of similar systems in other games, but I just can't get over how slow the combat becomes. This could be, in part, due to the fact that I played through this game as a warrior, which is the only class you're able to play until you pass a certain threshold. I chose the warrior on the game's hardcore mode, thinking I would hit a certain point, unlock the other classes, and start again with a fresh class. This never happened. I was able to beat the game in just a few hours with my hardcore warrior, and never once did I feel like the threat of death was real. The game's bosses at the end of each act are really fun. They have unique mechanics that aren't seen elsewhere in the game. They require you to change up your playstyle quite a lot. If you decide to give the game a go, I'd rather not spoil the boss fights, as they were, for me, the primary thing making this game worth recommending. Book of Demons is still in early access and receives frequent updates. I think it has a lot of potential, but the pacing makes it hard to stomach at times. It's not fun spending upwards of a minute attacking a low-level minion in a hack-and-slash ARPG. I recommend this game to people who were never able to fully play through the original Diablo, or fans looking for a nostalgia trip without revisiting the old game. I think there are much better ARPGs on the market for a similar price tag, so unless the game has something that you specifically can't live without, I'd say pass.